Good evening. Welcome to a special weekend edition of Plain Talk. It is one-on-one. I'm joined in studio today by the head of the NACTA polling company. He is well known and the results of his polls has influenced people's voting over decades. When we come back, I will introduce you to him. And we're back, and joining me in studio today, Vishnu Bisram.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me.
Vishnu, head of NACTA. What does NACTA stand for?
So it's the North American Caribbean Teachers Association. It was formed out of a group of us, Caribbean scholars, academics, university students, teachers, in New York. We were studying and we recognized that there wasn't any group that was engaged in social and economic issues discussion of our presence in the U.S. as well as in the Caribbean. And so we decided to focus our attention on mostly seminars, conferences in New York, eventually made its way here in Trinidad and in Guyana and in other Caribbean territories. But we started out really to do and engage in academic discussion as well as what we are doing now. Polling was not one of the
and that's what you're famous for.
And then later on we felt that since at the time there was only one polling organization in Trinidad, none in Guyana, and hardly any throughout the Caribbean. Selwyn Ryan, of course, made his reputation through polling. And so we decided that we are going to try our hand at polling here in Trinidad in 1995.
I'm sure a lot of people are happy to finally get a face behind the name. You've become rather famous. People love you or hate you depending on which side of the political divide that your polls suggest.
Well, you become famous whether they like you or hate you. Either way, you become famous. Yes.
Infamous or famous. So, scientific polling, that's what you're engaging now?
Yes.
Your scientific polling, but before we get to that, you said the Caribbean.
Mm-hmm.
So you polled Trinidad, Guyana. Who else you polled?
Grenada. We were in St. Lucia, Antigua, Barbados.
As regular as you?
No, not regularly. No, our regular polls are here in Trinidad and Guyana because we're more familiar with the territory.
Who engages you in Trinidad, or do you just do your polls?
We just do our polls,
and make it available to the media.
And that's correct.
So once you know that we're in an election cycle, you start polling.
And even when you're not in an election cycle, people want to know what's happening in between.
So you're polling critical data.
Yes.
Cambridge Analytica style.
Well, I haven't studied them, but I think our data is also quite competitive or around the same.
Do you solicit data masked, or do you poll active polls?
No, active polls.
So random samples?
Random sampling.
How do you arrive at your random sample?
Well, that's why we are focused mostly in Trinidad and Guyana, because we are, for lack of a better term, racially polarized society. It's very easy to acquire.
Get some from column A and some from column B.
That's right.
Okay, but there's also a growing column C.
There has been a growing column C over the last two elections.
None of the above.
And I think it is going to increase substantially.
And influence the outcomes in any future elections.
I agree that, and not only here but in Trinidad and in Guyana as well.
Especially when Guyana's economy has turned Guyana upside down, because now people in Guyana have a vested interest in staying in Guyana. Before a Guyanese, I don't want to get too much into Guyana's politics, but Guyana's American dream was to get out of Guyana.
Yes, in fact, somebody wrote about it, I think, in the Guyana papers today, that it's always been our goal to escape.
And now they're coming home.
And escape to Trinidad as well. And in Trinidad, you usually kick Guyanese out. And now Trinidadians
Reverse is the
are
case.
seeking to escape to Guyana, and the Guyanese are looking to kick them out. Yeah.
Well, let's just touch on a couple things before we get down into the meat of the conversation, right?
Right. Hmm.
So besides Selwyn Ryan, does he still poll?
I don't think he has polled for the longest while. I haven't seen him written either.
I wanna talk about critical data with you, and I wanna come to critical data for polls. Before we get into that, there is a Nigel Henry pollster.
Yeah.
What do you think of his polling?
I think he has done very good polling. His polling is quite different from mine.
Do you think
and
he's a hired gun? Do you think he?
I prefer not to comment
Do
on
you think
that.
he polls for outcomes?
I prefer not to comment on that.
Any other pollsters of note in Trinidad and Tobago that you think that people could pay attention to?
Well, there is that group that operates out of UE.
The
that-
U, yeah.
Yeah. Ansa McCall, I think it has another name
Yeah,
now.
yeah, yeah.
And then
It's
we
still
have,
functional.
I haven't seen anything from it recently. And then you have,
No, because they have a lot of opportunistic pollsters.
right. Uh-huh.
And the data that should be guiding the entire electoral process, like is done in more developed countries, is identifying public trends as you go along.
Regrettably, that has not been the
Critical
case.
detail.
Yeah, regrettably that has not been the case here or in Guyana. And in
But you've been working with the diaspora
mhm.
abroad.
Mhm.
That still continues. You
Yes,
still
yes.
involve yourself in the intellectual exchange, academic.
Continuing all the time, especially now on immigration matters.
Right. Critical data for polling in Trinidad and Tobago. Always, do you like, do you not like, seems to dominate the conversation. Newsday published a poll about a Nigel Henry poll, I believe, that asked Africans if they like the PNM and asked Africans if they like the UNC. I mean, the poll bordered on sedition, if you ask me, because it literally divided the country into two camps, black and Indian.
Yeah, I don't think it was Newsday. I think it was Express.
Express?
Yeah.
Sorry, I apologize. A third of the population now are known to be neither nor, claim themselves to be neither nor. We red, we Douglas, we, like me, like brown, strong and sweet. We mixed, but we're not black or Indian alone. And those two camps are shrinking. Your last
Substantially.
poll, your last poll, 50% of the people wanted neither.
That's correct. It's and I don't.
When do you, Vishnu, when are you going to name the Progressive Empowerment Party in a poll just to let the public see where we stand?
Well, I think that's a very good question, a very critical question, and it's one that you should also engage with other pollsters.
Well, I want to just,
and
after they see me
and,
talk
and
to
I
you,
think and I think it's a fair question, including to me. I never really gave it much thought, but yes, there should be a poll, and it doesn't have to be a commission poll. I should have engaged
no,
a
I
poll.
don't want to commission a poll. I want to ask you
yeah.
on your polling, and I
Right.
said this, to get back to the issue of the other pollsters, if they're worth their salt,
Yeah.
after they see you in this interview, they will contact me on 682-2110 to get themselves interviewed as well. You have a level of credibility still in a country where credibility is scarce currency. And the other pollsters can't seem to get themselves into that arena. And the people take their polls with more than a pinch of salt.
They do.
The Progressive Empowerment Party, even though that is the hat that I wear as political leader, I want to ask you this. All of the third parties that started out, right now, of all of them, the one with the most brand recognition is the Progressive Empowerment Party, the PEP. The Congress of the People is still known, but it is known and regarded almost as it should have been put to bed a long time ago.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes or no?
Yes, of course. Yes.
The average...
It's been a disappointment.
Well, I mean...
Well, not from me,
no,
but that's what the voters
no,
are saying.
but
That
absolutely,
yeah.
because the Congress of the People, their graph, 2007, was straight up,
that's right.
and then 2010 straight down. After the People's Partnership experiment, they lost all of their following.
Yes.
And they appeared to have sold out, even if that may not have been the case, but that the deal, whatever deal they made to get into the People's Partnership, it was not even-handed and that the Congress of the People's membership felt let down and left out of the decision making. Would that be fair to say?
Yes, I think that's an accurate analysis and description of what took place. Yes.
So that voting pool
Yeah.
of people that regularly don't vote, that need to be motivated to vote, there is no one organization that could, and I wouldn't even as the PEP say that we claim them, but I'm saying that of all the third parties that exist, the Progressive Empowerment Party has the strongest brand right now.
I think it's the most active at the moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll use your words. If it's the most active at the moment, wouldn't you say, for your purposes, and to keep your credibility, your integrity, and to guide the public conversation, knowing that there are 3 players now, and that 2 of the players are not in ascendancy, but to use your words, the most active is the PEP, shouldn't the public get to weigh in as a choice?
I'm not sure.
Adding the Progressive Empowerment Party to your polls, asking in your polls, and I'm suggesting, and do not think that I'm doing this publicly, but I'm not trying to influence your polling. But the things that matter to people in Trinidad and Tobago, corruption, crime, management of the economy, questions to the people like, of the 3 political leaders, Phillip Edward Alexander, Kamala Prasad Bisesa, and Keith Christopher Rowley, who do you trust most to deal transparently with the issues of corruption?
Okay,
Who do you trust to deal with the issues of crime, specifically white-collar crime and narco-trafficking through Trinidad and Tobago? Who do you trust to diversify the economy and make the economy functional for economic growth?
You've hit three of the critical issues that people raised. They themselves brought it out, and the government has been a failure, and the previous government too, in all 3 areas. And I think you're probably right that perhaps the question should be more directed. See, the questions we usually ask is, who are you going to vote for?
Do you like? Do you not like?
You're right.
But this is not a beauty pageant, and there's no swimsuit competition.
Right.
There should be questions, because what the media should be crunching is, let's say, the issue of traffic.
Yeah.
Right? Now, I keep breaking traffic into 2 things for Trinidad and Tobago. There's national traffic and there's local traffic. And local traffic is in your community, in your constituency, in where you live.
Just redefine traffic so people understand what you're talking about.
I talk about vehicular traffic transportation, right?
Because we talk about narco trafficking as well, so I thought you might be
No,
referring
we come
to
back to that too,
narco-trafficking
no
as well.
problem at all. But I'm just saying, right? We say in jest that generations of people in this country have grown up in the back seats of cars. You don't live in Trinidad. You may not be aware that between 200 and 250,000 people come into Port of Spain every morning.
Okay.
To leave Port of Spain every evening. They come here to work in government offices that have no business being in Port of Spain. Should have been decentralized out of Port of Spain a long time ago. Long before the advent of the internet, when Patrick Manning took the last oil boom dollars and built all of these government campuses and waterfronts and stuff, he knew he had the information that I have, that everybody else had, that government offices need to be decentralized, be moved to the center of the island, be broken up into smaller administrative complexes that you could use regionally. The Progressive Empowerment Party is proving the concept. We've broken Trinidad and Tobago, I just want to give you this information. We've broken Trinidad and Tobago into 5 regions: North, East, Central, South, Tobago. And we are controlling our campaigning, our electioneering, all of our communications with Trinidad and Tobago through 5 regional hubs, besides this headquarters that you're sitting in now. Using that as a model, all of the offices of state that people need to go to, social development, legal affairs, any other office that the public immigration that people regularly have to go to, should be at least put closer to them. None of the prior governments have sought to treat with issues like those issues. And of the 250,000 people that drive into Port of Spain and out of Port of Spain, they get in traffic every day, 4 and 5 hours. The current government spent over $500 million commissioning a study about a rapid rail that is supposed to be a solution to a problem that need not exist. You don't need to be a pollster to know that when school is closed, our traffic dries up.
Mm-hmm.
So that means the effect of the school traffic or national traffic cannot be ignored. A rapid rail not going to solve that.
Mm-hmm.
If education decentralization back to the community would. And you can't say that you don't want to decentralize education back to the community because some schools are prestige and some schools aren't.
Mm-hmm.
If all schools are funded by the same Ministry of Education, if all schools have the same curriculum, what we're saying is that we are failing to manage all of our schools. That is an issue that should be polled. That is an issue that people should be weighing in on. Would you prefer to live in a country where all schools are community schools, where all schools are zoned, and all schools are prestige schools? And I'm suggesting these things to you.
Yeah, I'm glad for those suggestions, and if you could send them to me an email or whatever, I think we really should give thought to those things. I never really give deep thought to them because remember, I only come here intermittently.
You're not living here,
Right,
you're operating
right,
here. And I
right.
get that.
That's
That's why
it.
I'm giving you
Yeah.
this information because
But you're right. I don't see the reason why services cannot be decentralized, why power cannot be decentralized, why, for example,
critical data.
Why,
This is critical data.
Yeah, why is it, for example, Mayaro cannot run its own affairs? The people of Mayaro know what their problems are. And just
12
let,
of the
you know.
constituencies on the East-West corridor could fit in Mayaro.
Yeah.
Mayaro is the largest constituency in Trinidad and Tobago. It's huge.
Mm-hmm.
They shouldn't have the same police budget, the same healthcare budget. They have different needs that are specific to Mayaro.
That's correct. Yeah.
But members of parliament are voted into office based on party clan and tribal voting.
Mm-hmm.
So that Mayaro has never been properly represented except at election time.
And the representatives of Mayaro, or for any
No,
constituency,
but
at
you
no
brought
point,
up Mayaro, and I want to stick to that.
and at no time did a representative of Mayaro ever ask, look, our constituency is being neglected, we want services. The minute that issue comes up, you will find that your party leadership might expel you. You're not running for re-election again.
The reason I'm raising these issues with you and to the viewers looking on, the reason I'm raising these issues with Vishnu is that a poll plays a role in the national narrative. Because the rest of the country gets to know what everyone is thinking on issues. People like to know that, okay, I am of sound mind, that my believing that we should get better this and better that.
But people want decentralization of service. For example, people are quite excited when this government proposed 4 or 5 years ago that it was going to decentralize, that each of the 14 boroughs is going to run on the same playing field and as Tobago, and it turned out.
But the THA model is a failed model.
But still, it's still
THA
better. But it's better than nothing.
No,
Yeah.
no, it's not. You know.
Okay.
No, it's not. I'll tell you
All
why.
right.
The THA owes Trinidad and Tobago accounts for at least 12 years that they've received in excess of $30 billion.
You're referring to audits.
When you get $2.5–3 billion a year from central government, you are supposed to account for it.
Yes.
But the government is trying to play with local government the same way they play politics with the THA. The THA does not develop Tobago. And Tobagonians deserve far better than the THA. So to say that it is better than nothing, this lesser evil nonsense that we've been doing for 57 years has not worked in our favor. And to the people of Tobago, which I say without fear of contradiction, Tobago is quite possibly the most beautiful island on planet Earth.
It's extremely beautiful, yes.
Tobago should be the #1 tourism destination in the world.
It should be, yes.
Tobago should have 6- and 7-star resorts by now, as well as space for the small guest house and the little restaurant to play. Tobago should be a massive global economy, but it isn't. Tobago lives on handouts from Trinidad that the THA takes and doesn't account for. When the THA gets $2.5 billion, that's $1.25 billion to Tobago East and $1.25 billion to Tobago West. When Diego Martin West gets $120 million, that is a disparity. And to say that the people of Diego Martin West are going to get the same because you're creating a new model modeled on the THA model. It's not the same because you're now going to have to break the whole thing down. And they're coming to the point that the Progressive Empowerment Party has made, which is having 5 regional health authorities, 14 regional corporations, a Tobago House of Assembly, 9 police divisions, and 41 constituencies makes no sense. The Progressive Empowerment Party proposes to abolish all of that and to replace it with autonomous constituencies led by a constituency board of supervisors, a supervisor for public works, public utilities, healthcare, education, and national security.
For each of the 5?
For each of the 41 constituencies.
Okay.
And that at budget time, Tobago East, Tobago West, Laventille East, Laventille West, Couva North, Couva South, all of Trinidad and Tobago, all of the constituencies would have their own board of supervisors. And each of those supervisors would have the responsibility for managing the sphere of their constituency, budgeted, allocated, every election.
So you'll eliminate the 41, you'll eliminate the 14 boroughs.
Abolish it, repeal the Municipal Corporations Act. It's antiquated, it's a waste of time. We only have a local government because Trinidad was supposed to be one of 10, a federation of states. That's why local government was written into the first constitution, that they were going to be a federation of Caribbean states. It wasn't just going to be Trinidad, it wasn't just going to be Jamaica. We were all going to be together. And that central government would have been based most likely at the start in Trinidad. It may have moved from time to time, we don't know. But the federal government in Washington is a model that you could use here. So if you base the federal government of the Caribbean region in Trinidad and Tobago, all of the islands would have required a local government to take care of the needs of the people. But the federation collapsed. And we still kept local government. Our national anthem wasn't written for Trinidad and Tobago, you know. Our national anthem was written for that federation. Trinidadians don't even have this critical information upon which to vote. So they just ask, do you like Kamala's shoes? Do you like Keith's hair? And that's where we need to change. And that's why I keep saying critical data. Because you, operating from the advanced, developed countries, should be able to guide the process and influence the narrative. Why don't you?
You see, polling should not be influencing people. That's not the objective of a poll. That's the work of academics and scholars. They should be the one to influence the people.
You're
The
right,
polling.
but I'm not saying influence the people. But I'm saying that you know,
I
from a
agree.
first
No,
world
no,
and a
no,
developed
no,
nation, let me just say this, right?
Yeah.
Singapore is half the size of Trinidad and Tobago. Their GDP is $322 billion a year. Trinidad's is 22 billion. Trinidad is twice the size of Singapore. Singapore has 5 billion people. Their economy just eclipsed the United States of America as the most developed.
And they have no resources, whereas you have
no
resources.
We have a lot of resources, right? You, in your capacity, could ask that question.
I agree with you. I plead guilty that there more.
I'm not trying to put you on a spot.
No. I plead guilty that more should be done by not only our polling organization, other polling
But I
organizations.
feel also,
as
and I
well.
don't want people to think that I'm coming down hard on you because you had such a lack of options that it didn't make a difference because people were still going to poll. People were still going to poll fish or fowl.
Right.
Now you want to get them polling on policy, influence, leading them to a position where they
But do understand, you don't even have a policy institute in this country.
No, we don't.
Yeah.
No, we don't.
And this is perhaps the most developed of the Caribbean states.
It is.
And it should have driven.
But when we say that, right, we are most developed because most amount of money passed through here. But we are left behind by a lot of the Caribbean countries. Barbados leaves us behind, Jamaica leaves us behind, Guyana leaves us behind in critical issues. Not holistic development as yet.
Yeah.
But Jamaica was turning a very big corner and they've turned it. Jamaica is going to leave us in their wake. And Jamaica doesn't have the resources we have. Heaven help if they monetize their natural resources. Because Trinidad and Tobago could very well end up, when the history of the Caribbean is written, as a warning to all the other states and an example of what not to do.
Perhaps, yes. I mean, your resources are drying up rapidly.
With this budget, we are $2 billion off of having spent $1 trillion officially. Countries with economies or potential or income far smaller than ours have put satellites in space. We can't put a ferry between Trinidad and
Including
Tobago.
some very poor countries, eh?
That's what I'm saying.
And Singapore, in fact,
I'm saying that.
they make the
I'm
satellites.
saying that. Singapore just found a way to turn their trash into generating electrical power.
Mhm.
We dump our trash across from the beatum and let people run through traffic to go and sort trash so that they could live.
Mhm.
Trinidad and Tobago is a failing nation, if not a failed nation, by every proper example of where we should be now. 57 years later, $1 trillion later, Trinidad and Tobago, because of its position globally, where we are between North, Central, and South America, we should be a market hub, a transshipment hub, not for cocaine, but for everything else. Trinidad and Tobago could easily be one of the wealthiest nations on planet Earth, not per capita,
I agree.
wealthiest.
I agree.
We're not.
Uh-huh.
We've produced some of the most successful criminals in the world. Successful because they've stolen money in large quantities. Let's talk about Johnny O'Halloran, who left skyscrapers in Scarborough and Toronto to his heirs.
And nothing has come out of it. No one was prosecuted. No one was jailed.
We play and polling. We play either or, right?
Yes.
And the PNM gets to tell PNM supporters that this PNM is a different PNM to the last PNM. But the current PNM went into office, and the first thing that they did when they went into office is to turn off a lawsuit against the last PNM that stole $13 billion from the Treasury. It was budgeted and approved for $1.2 billion. It ballooned to $13 billion to buy gas to liquids and ultra-low sulfur diesel, and all of those things failed, and we were supposed to throw it in the sea. We didn't throw it in the sea. We sold it at scrap iron to Nikwan, who are public officials who got together to make themselves into a company that for $125 million more are operationalizing the things that we in Trinidad and Tobago couldn't. We've shut Petrotrin down. We do not give information to the public as to why these things happen. I'm giving you all of this information because if this had happened in America,
I don't think it would have happened.
no, but if it was, if it did, the United States of America, the people are voracious for information. That's why they have a 24-hour news cycle. They have a 24-hour news cycle because people want to know. And they are going to force media houses to stick microphones in your face to answer them. That's why it is so competitive. We in Trinidad and Tobago
And you are moving in that direction
trying
now.
our very best.
Yeah.
Trying our very best. The Progressive Empowerment Party took as its mandate to inform, educate, and empower the people this way. But you, Vishnu Bisram,
Right.
and NACTA, which is a different kettle of fish to all the other pollsters.
I hope.
No, because you have substance and you come from a place where your credibility, your brand, your reputation, your integrity matter.
Well, thanks for the confidence that you placed in us.
No, but it's not just confidence. I'm asking you that if you have a foot in the big pond and you want to be respected in the big pond, you have to behave according to the rules of the big pond.
And I expect to get these proposals from you regularly.
Yes. Trinidad and Tobago, we have no real guidance. I was going to tell you just
No,
now.
you have guidance. You
Not
have
it-
guidance. Yes, you do. You have people with the ability and capability, capacity.
We have a lot of people talking from the sidelines. They operate as silos. We have the Afra Raymonds and other people like them who bring a lot of critical information. Kirk Waite and Fixing TNT. Every now and then something will encourage him to get involved in a conversation.
So you're saying it's not consistent.
But it goes nowhere.
Yeah.
When
And so why it doesn't go nowhere?
because
why is
because
why
all
is
of
it
these
not-
people
Yeah.
believe that they cannot challenge electorally. Because we let the myth continue that is fish and fowl. That is PNM or UNC. And people forget that the UNC itself was a third party. That when it was NAR, PNM, and the UNC was formed, when the UNC spat itself out of the NAR in 1988, and Basdio Pandey formed Club 88, he was in fact a third party.
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes.
So we should be saying that we have a rich tradition of third parties. Now, that the UNC could have been able to form itself into something out of that Club 88 experience as a third party and become successful. And instead of looking at ways to consolidate power and political hegemony, we should be broadening our electoral base. We should be calling on everybody to throw your hat in the ring, to come to the conversation. You as NACTA, get to feed the media how the media should think. Journalistic
If
expertise.
the media is willing to think, if the media is
The
receptive.
content you give them, Vishnu, they have to work with that content regardless of whether it gags them or not. Journalistic expertise, forget integrity. Journalistic expertise don't exist in Trinidad and Tobago. You need to guide them. Again, you're coming from the big pond.
Now you have some very good journalists in the country. Yeah?
And yet we do not have good journalism.
Yeah.
Why
That's
would
the-
that be?
I think you were hitting the nail on the head. The people who run the economy are the ones who decide what will be on television or on radio, and so I'm glad that you have something like this where people there could be a second voice, a third voice now.
500,000 views in our first 28 days. Pep Media and Plain Talk doing quite well. And the public is showing that if you bring information, because I was going to tell you earlier.
But it's got to be consistent. It's got to be
Absolutely.
daily.
Absolutely.
Otherwise,
we're going to get to there, but you know that there's a cost, qualitative,
Okay.
quantitative, to do this. And that a lot of people who were standing on the sidelines before, who knew of the Progressive Empowerment Party, who saw the movement happening, who were still reticent because they were concerned for their own position, afraid of victimization, are now realizing that others are stepping forward, and we've crossed from first adopters. We're now actually influencing the national narrative. Last night, in a speech in Belmont, which would have been Friday night, the Prime Minister and the political leader of the PNM ascribed my words to the UNC. And he ascribed it to the UNC because he and his people cannot operate in a world where he has many parties to fight. They could do either or. They could do racist, tribal politics. They can't do policy programs, ideas, plans, and vision. And the moment Keith Rowley is forced to acknowledge the Progressive Empowerment Party, he's going to gag on it. He is going to show his followers, and they very well know this, that they will realize that the game has indelibly changed. That there is now players in the politics outside of the PNM and the UNC. And he's going to have to find a way to deal with that
And the
politically.
words ascribed were?
The words that he gave that were ascribed to the UNC, I can't give you those things because that's for him to deal with.
Okay.
But his people who were there, they messaged me to say, look who watching you. Look who following you. Look. And he now, instead of, because he tried to hide, instead of benefiting from it, he came across deceitful and weak. And his people who are guiding him need to understand that. Blocking the Progressive Empowerment Party from traditional media only made us open our own media. Social media that Stuart Young, the Minister of National Security, is so scared to death of. He's ringing all sorts of alarm bells about people using social media to do gang activities and drugs. But he can't account for why he, as Minister of National Security, has not taken up the Maritime Security Initiative that was commissioned by Patrick Manning, that was bid on local, regional, and internationally, as far away as China, the Maritime Security Wall, that would end the drug trade, the gun trade, the human trafficking trade, and collapse crime in Trinidad and Tobago. He can't speak to that. The country is broken politically because the government of the day and the government of all the governments we've had have not had to actually address issues. Failure to diversify the economy, even though we've known since the recession of the 80s. America, you all looked at us and you all wondered at what point will we get it. We waste chunks of our lives, 5 electoral years at a time. To the people my son's age, 26, they can't afford now. They are young people with very little options. And I was speaking to somebody else, a a contemporary who has children my son's age, they can't afford to vote into office a government that doesn't understand its responsibility to the environment. The environment is a critical issue. Trinidad not talking about it. Trinidad is not addressing the environment. They pay lip service to it. The Minister of Finance in the budget spoke about styrofoam and plastic bottles, and then went on to ban styrofoam. But 91% of all the trash is plastic bottles, and said nothing about that, despite having a beverage containers bill languishing in the parliament for almost 20 years.
And you don't have recycling either. And the whole world,
The closest-
the smallest little country in Europe has recycling laws and strictly enforced.
Let me tell you something sad. Forbes magazine
Yeah.
put out a list of the worst offenders for garbage in the world. And Trinidad topped the list.
Oh, really?
Trinidad topped the list.
Okay.
So and Japan just had its worst typhoon almost in history. And it flooded parts of Japan. And there was nothing like trash floating in the water. It was just deluge of water that the system couldn't handle and it had to handle.
Right.
But our floods, when our system tries to wash itself, is always full of so much plastic and so much stereotypes. And the point I was going to make to you is that the young people cannot come out of an election cycle at 31 in a world that is rushing headlong into treat with environmental issues because we have no choice. Scientists have said we cannot ignore it anymore. Trinidad and Tobago imports almost 100% of the food we consume. That is a ridiculous carbon footprint for a country that could be food self-sufficient if it wanted to.
Yes, I agree. So you have hit all the right notes. You have pointed out all of the right issues. And you yourself have been in politics for 3 years now, as PEP. Is it 3 years?
As PEP 3 years.
Yeah. And what is surprising to me as a pollster, since we're doing polls, is the inability to gain substantial traction. Now, you're not getting traction, substantial traction.
I want to tell you what will make a difference.
Okay.
And I'll tell you when we come back from this break. We'll be right back.
Antel is Trinidad's most reliable and technically experienced ICT company, providers of quality structured cabling, Cat6 data fiber, and power cables. We also stock cabling infrastructure basket-type cable trays for server rooms and data centers. Antel also installs and maintains video security systems including cameras, alarms, and electronic entrance locks for businesses and residential properties. Call Antel 674-1406 or 783-9250.
Sale, sale, sale. Boddington and Associates Optical is offering free eye testing along with 50% off all frames and 30% off all lenses. Boddington and Associates Optical, located at number 17 Carney Savannah Road, Chaguanas, and 11 McBean Road, Couva. Info line 671-5342. Call and book your free eye testing today. Boddington and Associates Optical, helping you see the way.
And we're back. And I am with Vishnu Bisram, head of NACTA, the North American Caribbean Teachers Association. And when you hear the name NACTA, you think polls. And you asked me before we went to break, why we're not getting traction. I'll tell you why we're not
And
getting
before you do, I have family members who adore you. whenever you speak, they want to listen to you. In fact, they upset me as well because as a pollster,
You see what you just did there?
Yeah.
You see what you just did, though, will upset the other political parties. Because if you poll us, and if you add us to the poll, and Pep wins the poll, Keith Rowley will go on the platform and say, NACTA is a Pep party.
It's a Pep party.
And you understand what I'm trying
Yes,
to tell you?
yeah.
I remember the first time I went on Fazir Mohammed show as Pep. He was very hard on me.
Yeah, okay.
And by the second time I was allowed, because we don't get much media time, and the second time I was allowed when I went there, he told me his wife was a supporter because she saw us solve the problem of the shakedown at Maracas Beach with the chairs. And she told him that's how political parties need to operate. And so we dropped gifts and things. Now, that's not to say that he goes easy on me now, but it shows that thinking people are, and everybody has family and friends who telling them, listen to what Pep is talking
They
about.
are listening to you.
When
but the
you
question
ask
then
me,
is,
you ask me
yeah,
why we're not getting traction. I'll tell you why.
Yes, yeah.
Tell you why. Imagine if you poll this party.
Uh-huh.
71% of the voters say they voting Pep.
Uh-huh.
Country grind to a halt tomorrow. People waiting as a critical mass to get on board. There is a tipping point, and that tipping point, the perception, you know when they have forfeits carnival time and you're looking to go to a fete, you're waiting to think to find out which is the fete everybody going to and you're going to that one.
That's right. Yeah.
That is perception. When you do not poll Pep, when you leave the Progressive Empowerment, I'm just saying this thing.
Yeah, okay.
When you leave the Progressive Empowerment Party out of the choices, when you as NACTA tell people there are only two choices, you reinforce in their minds that there are only two choices. If you show them, just lead them to the conversation. If you had a choice between the People's National Movement, the United National Congress, and the Progressive Empowerment Party, if you do a detailed poll that talked about all these issues that you and I have spoken about, and got their input on that, not as PEP, PNM, or UNC, just their input on the issues that matter, and then gave them the option to choose between which party you think will successfully address white-collar crime, which party you think will shut down the drug trade and secure the nation's borders, which party you think will bring the corrupt to justice and end corruption in Trinidad and Tobago, which party you think has the most advanced policies, programs, plans, and ideas to transform Trinidad and Tobago. Who between the PNM, the UNC, and the PEP you choose, you will be surprised.
I don't think it's so much that PEP has been left out. PEP is included in the poll.
No, you can't talk third party.
In the sense that it is there, but it's that the people felt
it's inferred.
Or feel
it's inferred.
Right,
you can't infer. You have to
that,
name the animal now.
That okay, yes, but that the people feel that I will be wasting my vote if I go with PEP.
You are sitting in the Progressive Empowerment Party's PEP Media studio on a PEP show that is right now the most watched political talk show in this country. So it is telling you that those people that you think that you're pandering to, who might think that is a wasted vote, forget them for now. Yeah. They are always the last adopters. Speak to the people who are critical thinkers.
So what I think what PEP needs to do is to perhaps do some more branding to get its message out.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
While you and I are speaking, we have something called an outreach program every Saturday, North, East, Central, South, and soon in Tobago, where the teams that make up the hubs go to different locations and speak to people and give them our 21 policies sneak preview into our manifesto. Do you know that this party launched with a manifesto? No other political party in this country's history has done that. Our 21 policies has influenced the PNM and the UNC in their conversations now.
So they've borrowed from your policies.
Borrowed is a polite way of saying stolen. I'm saying to you that we deserve, because the public has told you more than 50% want neither nor, you have a responsibility to find what would they want instead. Yeah?
I agree. Yeah.
Yeah?
Yes.
And by polling them and asking them of these three options or other, I'll even tell you, give them other. So it's not to say that we are so arrogant that we believe that we are the de facto. Exactly. Okay. I want to be very clear about that because we don't want nothing for free. We're working hard at this. You're seeing that. Give them four options: PNM, UNC, PEP, or other. See what wins.
We'll try it. You can't ask for more than that, huh?
That's the best response I could have gotten. And I hope, because And you know what and this is a suggestion. This one is a suggestion. Write to the leadership of the other parties and ask them, give me the 20 questions that you think are most relevant to Trinbagonians for our next poll. And take those 20 questions from all parties. And I'll tell you why. When you get it, you will see for yourself the difference between politics and governance that the PEP offers.
Well, I have a suggestion beyond that. We have an election coming up in 6 weeks, is it? Why don't we have some citizenship group or some civic group invite the leaders of the two major parties and whatever minor parties there
That
are.
will happen.
So have a discussion.
No, that will happen
on
when you poll. I'll tell you why. Even if the PEP comes second or third, but close, they can't ignore us. If the PEP wins the poll, understand this, the media will be put on the spot because the public will be dictating to the media. People don't go KFC for fish, you know. The public will be dictating. When you go to a place called Kentucky Fried Chicken, you push that door, know where you come for.
Right.
If the PEP...
I go for fish at times.
I'm not saying no. I'm saying it's not called Kentucky Fried Fish. But I like that. When you poll and give them the option, if the PEP wins that poll, the media
has no option but
will be looking to the west at sunset with eyes closed to pretend there's no light in the sky. The PEP would have created a space based on the public, not our doing. Based on the public saying, this is where our political interest lies. And now the media will have a responsibility to bring that information. And the PNM and the UNC will have no choice but to debate. And we as leaders of the poll already agree to any debate. I will go Balize House, I will go Rienzi, well it's not Rienzi anymore, Couva, I'll go wherever. As long as it is free and fair and every question I have to answer, the other two have to answer, I don't mind. I've said, the Guardian called us this week to find out about our membership. We said we've been ready for this question. We have our membership ready and audited. We're ready to make it available to you that you could open at random, call people and say, are you a PEP member?
And is it available publicly? Or?
We are making it available publicly as soon as the PNM and the UNC agree to make theirs as well.
Okay.
And that
I think that's a fair...
has to be.
Yeah,
it has to be. Because you can't have a different standard for the PEP than you have for those two. You can't say, come in our boxing match, but tie one hand behind it, right? We have, the Progressive Empowerment Party is we're very clear that we are willing to take part in the most transparent and democratic...
And not only membership, but funding as well. It should be transparent for all parties, not just one.
And again, as a party that is in constant fundraising mode, that has literally told people who have offered funding in exchange for consideration that we don't do that.
Okay.
That this party is going to build its following on word of mouth. We're going to build our war chest on barbecues and fundraisers. We are going to get ourselves into government as representatives of the people and not of special interests, as has been the case in this country for at least the past 30 years. Trinidad and Tobago is so frustrated with politics. They are so fed up of politicians. Politicians lie to the people of this country in official capacities, and the people are not stupid. We may have undereducated them, we may have left them out of the conversation, but Trinidadians are very good at finding sense from nonsense. We're not stupid people.
Just to redirect it back to polling, I hope you're not suggesting that polling will make or break PEP or any political
Not
party.
at all.
It shouldn't,
Not at all.
and it doesn't.
Not at all. But the last door The last door that the media is hiding behind is that we are irrelevant.
Okay.
We know for a fact that it is us that has forced the conversation into less than 50% interest in the PNM and UNC. We want a chance to prove it.
Okay. So even before the NACTA poll revealed that over 50% or 50% are disenchanted with both major parties, you knew that as well.
We were working very hard on the ground.
Yeah.
We get that information on the ground.
Mhm.
People treat me, and especially there are parts of this country that I go, that I'm surprised the treatment I get. I go in Morva, Bitam, Lavantil, Silots, places that should be diehard PNM. It's not. And if PNM gets challenged in these constituencies now by a party that the people believe the leadership will not take them for granted, the PNM is going to get its heart broken in its traditional seats in the next general election. The ground is not buying its opinion from CNC3 and TV6. It's not taking as fact what Guardian, Express, and Newsday put out. The ground is aware of fake news because they see real fact take place before their eyes and then see the spin that's put on it and served back to them. NACTA polls the ground.
And therefore, I'll ask you, I shouldn't be the one asking you, but I'll ask you anyway. What is the ground saying about PEP in the coming local election?
We're not fighting the local election. We've said that the local election is a waste of time, it's a waste of money. The media tells you that the local government is the most underused of any type of election in the country. Nobody takes it seriously. It gets the smallest turnout. It's literally a waste. We cannot take our precious resources and go chasing after the PNM and UNC in a non-essential election in an organization that we think does not serve the people, that should be done properly, that could be done better, that could decentralize the power of the cabinet back to the people, so that a minister of works don't sit down in Sinclair and decide when Point Fortin gets roads paved, that Point Fortin should decide for itself, that it should get its share of the budget and be allowed to run itself.
But that's the message that the people should have bought.
Long
and,
time
theref-
ago.
and
Long
therefore,
time
and
ago.
therefore vote for a PEP.
Tell you something. You as a gatekeeper of opinion, because if you
That's a better description of your gatekeeper's opinion. Not influencers.
okay,
and
you
gatekeepers.
brought the word influencer. You
Okay.
brought that word.
Okay.
But as a gatekeeper, you get to give the people their voice. Like an election, a poll is like an election.
A poll is yes, that's correct.
You
yes,
get to
we
give
that-
you get to give the people a voice, and giving them a dynamic voice, giving them a voice on issues, not just personalities and tribalism. Give them a real chance to speak how they feel.
But pollsters also have a challenge, just like just like how the PEP or other minor parties have a challenge. That is access to the media as well. We don't have unlimited.
Stick up in for a second. You see how in your mind you just said minor parties?
Yeah.
That would change if you polled and the information came back to you that the PEP is beating the PNM and the UNC on all fronts.
Okay.
And you will never refer to us that way again, but continue.
Oh no, that was essentially.
But you said access to the media.
Yeah, right.
And that's the point. But your poll doesn't only go on the media. Your poll goes on social media as well.
Okay.
And the public is waiting with bated breath to stand up and say, look, scientific fact. Stop telling me that that's a minor party. The PEP will win the next election. Stop playing the fool. Get on board and help. That's not for you, for them, for each other.
Right.
The truth of the matter is, and it remains, people allow certain things to continue in the absence of more information or better fact. Yeah? You ever heard, I see they're advertising a movie about Harriet Tubman. It's called Harriet. You know who Harriet Tubman was? Harriet Tubman was a slave woman. And she freed herself and she escaped. And she escaped into the free part of the country and spent the rest of her life putting herself at risk, going back
To free
and
others,
free others. And her most famous statement is, I freed 1,000 slaves. I could have freed 1,000 more if only they knew they were slaves. as a gatekeeper to information.
Okay.
You get to let people know the reality of their condition so they could make better decisions. Yes or no?
Yes, I agree with you, and I also challenge you now to bring the Nigel Henrys and the others.
That's
the
on them.
pollsters
That's on them.
to
I don't know what their agenda is. I don't know what drives them. It's on them. 682-2110 is my number. It's known. Everybody knows my number. And I invite them now. I wish I could invite them to a panel with you and come and discuss all of these issues. Trinidad and Tobago is not going to grow up. It's not going to be saved if all of the people that have any piece of the pie continue to be agenda driven. Continue to, you know the saying, all the raindrops contribute to the flood. No one raindrop ever thinks itself as having caused the flood. And we need all of the people and what they bring to the table to start putting Trinidad and Tobago first. We talk it a lot. We play political games. But it is time that our politics goes back to being about how best do we get this country to live up to its full potential.
and to serve the interests of the people.
Well, the well-being of all the citizens is the function, purpose, and reason for government. Without the people, we don't have this conversation. The people of this country are the most important in the equation. And the day government learns that again, the day we put our government in office, and the fastest way to do that, poll something. Poll the right of recall. The right of recall is the opportunity for people who have voted somebody into office to vote them out without waiting the full 5 years.
And the
Do you know we don't have anything like that in Trinidad and Tobago?
no, and the UNCCOP had promised a right to recall, but
The
never.
Congress of the People had a list of demands that the UNC agreed to in lip service only. And what Kamala Prasad Bisesa did was sent Prakash Ramada off on a fool's errand, only to come back and add to it something called runoff that would have signaled the death of any other third parties. So of course, all of us who were championing referendum and recall and fixed election date did not want runoff. So we had to vote against the whole bill. And they knew that game. You see, they know the game, you know, they know how to play the game of politics. We want to we want to flip that script. We've told people of Trinidad and Tobago, the Progressive Empowerment Party, its first act as a government, if you vote us into government, we will convene parliament for one purpose only. And that is to write recall into law. And that we invite 100,000 people to join us outside the parliament, because we will call the parliament to order and not stop the debate until recall is ready for the president to proclaim into law. That is a contract and a promise. That is to guarantee that after the PEP, that no other government will come to office and squat and take the people's representation for granted or betray their trust.
All right, and just to return back to polling, I think
It's all about polling.
I am so thrilled, if for lack of a better word, that you have placed so much faith in polling, because not many people see the relevance, significance, and importance of polling. And I believe, as you rightly put it, that polling gives the people the voice, especially in between elections. They vote, and after that, nothing happens. If they don't get any service, they come back again and vote again. And in between, we are the voice of the people in between.
A poll put Arnold Schwarzenegger as governor of California. When a poll asked if Governor, I can't remember his name, I think it was Brown, was doing a good job when they were suffering from blackouts, electricity was failing, and the people said no, and they recalled him.
They recall him, yes.
They recalled him because they realized that there were grounds to recall him, but a poll.
And he was also a very popular governor just before that.
Just before that,
Yes.
right? And that's the type of country that I have a vision for Trinidad and Tobago, that the people who just went through the madness of the Tobago ferry should have recalled the government. They should have recalled the entire government. Under this government, the Port Authority failed. A poll would have asked them, do you have confidence in the government to manage the affairs of the people of Trinidad and Tobago, based solely on what's taking place on the port? And again, so when you say to bring it back to polling, The entire conversation to me, in my mind, is about that. And that the public have been left out of the conversation because the media, instead of engaging them through critical information that you could provide, dictate to them what they get handed down to them. So that they believe that if you say this is reality, people will continue to accept it as reality. But you know and I know that people also have their opinions that they're entitled to. And they have a human right to that, to have an opinion. And in a democracy, they have a right to have that opinion expressed. We are moving further and further from that because we've closed off our politics and isolated it down to racism. And that is why so many people say neither. Give them a third option and watch and see what they do.
Or a fourth option?
Fourth, fifth, sixth. Vishnu Bisram, this was an enjoyable conversation.
I enjoyed it myself, and I thank you very much for having me.
Yeah.
And if you invite me again, I'll sure...
Absolutely. The door is open to you. What's your closing comments on these issues?
Well, I like this idea of yours of decentralization. I may not like all of the suggestions you have, but it's open for discussion, debate, something that serves the interests of the people. And that has been missing from the politics for the longest while. I can't think of anyone who really, and I do believe, and I take it at heart, that you truly, truly believe that decentralization is the way to go. And I myself, because I live in a country where power is decentralized at so many different levels, the people are the source of power, and it should be so for every society. Polling, yes, I commit, and I think you're right. Your critique and criticism is point on that NACTA and other polling organizations as well should be more people-oriented, find out what are the people's views and issues in particular, and how do they see parties like yours or others that
there are others.
Yes.
There are others.
Yeah.
And they have a right as well to be.
Sure they do. Sure. It's not that PEP is the only
no, I'm not saying that.
Party, yeah.
I'm just saying PEP is the best.
Well, every party feels every party feels
I know,
the best. Yes. Just like every pollster feels that he or she is
absolutely
the best.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But thank you so much.
Thank you, Vishnu.
Sir, for having me.
And I like what you just said. And I want to say something. When you said it, I was thinking that if you and I agreed on everything, one of us would be unnecessary. So I like the fact that there are points of order that we could disagree and debate on, because if it's one thing I want to do, as long as I am alive, is continue learning. I want to get better.
But in a family, there's always disagreement.
Absolutely.
And then
Absolutely.
It's open for discussion about what is the best way forward. And so is this country. The PEP's ideas may not be the best, but certainly it's worth a discussion. Let's have a discussion on it to see what is best for the people. And I think many of your ideas, PEP's ideas, whether it's yours personal or PEP's, are apt for this country. I don't see why. But if the major parties, quote unquote,
if the traditional parties, that's what you want. That's the word you want to use. Traditional. Right now, PEP is the major party.
If the traditional parties are borrowing your ideas.
I have gone through all, because I have all of the UNC's manifestos.
Okay.
And I have all of the PNM's manifestos. And I have Vision 2020. I cannot find a copy of Vision 2030. But I've been told that it's the Vision 2020 with a different date and a different jacket. I've gone through all of those documents, and I can't find all of the PEP policies that they've started to borrow, to use your word, prior to the PEP being formed and releasing that information into the public space. Okay. That is me saying that their adoption of our policy is proof of fact and an endorsement that the PEP knows what it is doing.
Okay, with that said, I think...
He is Vishnu Bisram. He made polling scientific in Trinidad and Tobago. Who knows, maybe he will take it into the 21st century, now that he is going to include other options among the polling options. Trinidad and Tobago has a diverse political landscape now, and it is time that those doors were thrown open, the windows, pull back the drapes and the curtains. Let's get rid of this fetid and dank atmosphere and open Trinidad and Tobago up to real political expression. Yeah?
Thank you, sir.
Thanks for
Thank
coming,
you for having
Vishnu.
me, yes.